Welcome back. Continuing reviews of books about firearms and firearms training, we're going to talk about a very, very important topic, and that is what's usually known as low light shooting. I actually prefer the term adverse light because it covers all types of difficult lighting. It may not be reduced lighting, it may be too much lighting, it may be reflections, albescence, um, uh, dazzled in different ways, um, trying to shoot through a screen of smoke or dust, this kind of thing. But the low light is commonly accepted. And rarely, we don't do enough low light training. It should be a significant proportion of the firearms program. Because to be honest, if you can do it, if you can perform well in the dark, then it makes it a lot much more easier to perform in the light. So there's a training benefit to it. Now, one of the reasons why it's not done more is logistics. It can be difficult to arrange. For example, if you, a lot of police departments have this, is they work on an outdoor range, and in the summer it may not get dark until 9 o'clock at night. So you've got to bring all the guys at 9 o'clock at night. There may be noise problems from neighbours and so on, and that can be a problem. Indoor ranges usually have control of light, so it can be ideal. Even in bright summer's day, you can go indoors and do it. Many years ago, DeSantis came up with low light goggles. They were blacked out goggles. The idea was you wore them in the daytime on an outdoor range and it would simulate. They didn't work. I sent for a couple of pairs thinking that we could use them, just didn't work. There was too much leakage around them. I put miles of masking tape on to try and block, still didn't work, which was a problem. So also, in the past, there was a lot of emphasis on what was called dim light shooting. In other words, shooting at indistinct targets in not total darkness, but where you could just make out a little bit. Big problems with that, target identification. And as Masai, you pointed out, in those light conditions, you are legally blind in many situations. So you wouldn't be legally clear to shoot at somebody in those conditions. Anyway, to cover the book that we're talking about, it's this one, The Low Light Fight, Shooting Tactics and Combatives by Mike Seeklander. Now, we've previously reviewed one of Mike's books on the firearms instructor, and this is another excellent presentation he's made. I'll just quote how he sets the book up. Before we get into gear and technique, I want to remind you what our low light system must allow us to do. It must allow us to, 1, defend our head against physical assault before shooting is warranted, very quickly and with little risk of pointing the muzzle at our flashlight hand. 2, strike and disrupt somebody without losing our weapon or light. 3, search dark areas with our light in a flexible manner without having to constantly move the gun around. 4, identify those we find preferably, I think it should be, without having to point the gun directly at them. 5, use the light as a disruption tool to give us time to make a response decision. 6, identify and engage with our handgun quickly and accurately if appropriate, at contact distance and at non-contact distance. And he goes into all the implications of that, breaks it down, the flashlight techniques into 2 main areas, where the hands are together and where the hands are separate. Hands are together, for example, a Harris position, and the hands are separate in a position that he's going to go into in a lot of detail. And he gives the whys and wherefores of each. Now, the hand separate position, he was, when he was in the Air Marshal program, he was trained in what was called neck index, where the flashlight's held up here by the jaw or neck. He's modified that, and a big chunk of the book is about that. I'm not going to go into detail on it because it's his technique. He developed it, and the book sets it out very, very well. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, I've used the eye index the chin index a lot, and it's very useful. Mike's modification does make a lot of sense. He goes into the tactics of movement with the flashlight in coordination with the pistol. He goes into types of flashlights, what you should look for in a tactical flashlight, and of course, it's a growing industry. There's new flashlights come out all the time. He goes into weapon-mounted lights, which again is a big thing. A lot of departments issue weapon-mounted lights. There's a chapter on dry fire and live fire skill development, and very close range threats, 3 yards and in. My only criticism of the book is some of the photos are a little bit small. They could be a bit bigger, a bit clearer, but the actual information is top notch. There's a lot in the book you won't find anywhere else, and it's really an excellent resource. I recommend it a lot. It's a book I've referred to quite a bit. I've read it first overseas in the United States while we were doing a low light program, and it certainly gave me a few things to think about. And I bought my own copy when it came back. So that's how valuable it is.